Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Money Means Business. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we're going to focus on the regional conflict that is taking place between the United States, Israel and Iran in the Middle East, and the impacts of it on the operations of the Suez Canal, as well as the meetings that took place over the past few weeks between His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, and the Chairman of the Suez Canal Authority, Vice Admiral Osama Rabia, to be checking on the operations of the Suez Canal Authority and how things will be proceeding in the near future within the implications of the Middle East war between the United States and Israel. Will be also shedding more light on the latest economic activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, and the IMF response to the procedures taken by the Egyptian government regarding the latest developments in the region on the economic level. And to be shedding more light on those important topics, I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Engineer Sherin Naggar, the international maritime consultant. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for your invitation.
Anytime. First of all, we'll be starting straight away with the main top stories on the economic level for the past week and for today. More specifically, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi stressed the need to maintain the sufficient foreign currency reserves to secure the essential imports and the industrial inputs as the regional conflict raises the economic risks. As Sisi's remarks came during a meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, the Deputy Prime Minister for the Economic Affairs, Hussein Isa, Minister of Transport, Kamil Al-Wazir, the Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade, Mohammed Farid Saleh, and the Minister of Industry, Khalid Hashim. The meeting was held to discuss the impact of the escalating U.S.-Israeli war on Iran on the global energy prices and the supply chains. The discussions focused on protecting the local industry from the external pressures and ensuring the availability of the production inputs. Officials reviewed the measures to mitigate the rising costs and the stabilizing of the supply chains. Sisi called for safeguarding the economy from the harmful trade practices and maintaining the continuity of production while addressing the challenges facing the investors and manufacturers. The meeting also covered the efforts to support the investment and foreign trade, with the government aiming at improving the business environment and attracting additional capital. Engineer Sherin Naggar, how do you see the importance of the procedures taken by the political leadership under the tenure of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi through the Egyptian government to be protecting the foreign currency reserves, as we did see within this activity?
Well, it's something essential. We have been actually bombarded by a situation which is not of our doing, but it is seriously affecting our economy as Egypt overall. The price of gas imports has multiplied, the freights for certain commodities have multiplied, the revenue for the Suez Canal has certainly been seriously affected. So all these, the government has got to take whatever measures that it needs to take in order to preserve cash liquidity, in order to support imports of essential goods. Like, we don't want to see other power cuts in the summer. We
Yes.
don't want to see reduction of fertilizer activities, and which is very much gas dependent. We don't want to see any of that. So the government is, in my opinion, they are in their full right to do whatever is necessary to preserve the cash for such emergencies.
Yes. Speaking of emergencies, we have seen the statements of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi about the external pressures that have taken place, not just today, not just for the past month, but for the past 5 years at least, beginning with the coronavirus pandemic and then the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, which had also negative implications and repercussions on the Middle East and Egypt, the Egyptian economy, and then the aggression by the Israeli occupation forces against the innocent Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and nowadays the conflict and the war raging between the United States and Israel against Iran. How did you see Egypt dealing with those external pressures for the past 5 years, specifically on the economic front?
Well, if these incidents did not take place, like for example, take the Ukraine-Russia war, Egypt is importing or was importing substantial amounts of vegetable oils and grain from Ukraine and Russia. The flow of this imports has been interrupted very severely because of the conflict. And not just that, the prices have nearly doubled. So that is a burden on the Egyptian budget, on the Egyptian treasury.
Yes.
The other thing is that those two particular items are subsidized heavily, because you're talking about wheat, you're talking about bread. Bread is something very heavily subsidized, and the Egyptian government is in no position at this moment in time to lift subsidies over wheat especially. Oil is very much the same, vegetable oil is very much the same. So those two commodities in particular hit us very hard, hit the Egyptian economy very hard with the massive escalation of the prices. That is one example. But we talk about the 7th of October war and the negativity it has brought upon the Egyptian government. Of course, then you have people like Houthi. I still cannot see where they are fitting into the picture. There are people who are already having civil war in their own country, but then suddenly they are disturbing us and they're interrupting the flows to Bab el-Mandab. As a result, a lot of ships have shied away from Bab el-Mandab and consequently the Suez Canal, which of course affected the Suez Canal income quite heavily.
Yes.
Please.
And heading to another upbeat item of news regarding the same contest, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, said that the economic impact of the ongoing Iran conflict on Egypt so far remained contained, relatively limited, citing early and coordinated policy measures by the Egyptian authorities that helped contain the external pressures. Speaking at a press briefing, the IMF spokesperson, Julie Kozak, noted that the Egyptian flexible exchange rate has played a key role as a shock absorber, helping mitigate the impact of the global volatility while preserving the foreign currency reserves. However, the Egyptian economy continues to face mounting pressures from the rising global energy prices and the capital outflows. Egypt had also been hit by the higher energy import costs, and in response, the government has implemented a series of preemptive measures to safeguard the fiscal stability. Authorities also formed a high-level crisis committee to ensure the swift and coordinated response to the evolving developments. The IMF acknowledged these efforts as part of the broader strategy to enhance the economic resilience, while noting the delicate balance policymakers must maintain between the fiscal discipline and the social protection. Egypt is currently navigating the economic landscape as it continues the reforms under the $57 billion international support package agreed in 2024. Engineer Sherin and Naggar, how do you see the statements from the IMF regarding the response of Egypt towards the external pressures that we were speaking of?
It's positive for sure. I mean, it is at least not saying that the Egyptian economy is in a vulnerable state. Quite to the contrary, they say that the Egyptian government has already taken a lot of measures. Don't forget that the Egyptian government has been taking measures since 2020.
Yes.
It's nothing of yesterday, or it's not an event of the day. And a lot has been achieved in that respect. To give you an example, it's not just the monetary management or the cash management of the Egyptian budget. It's more like creating an existing production, our own production. I mean, if you look at the statistics of production of grain as an essential commodity,
yes,
Egypt has achieved a lot. We have been importing out of wheat, for example, we have been importing 12, 13, sometimes 14 million tons a year. This year, our imports have dropped to 8 million tons a year. So it only shows that despite the increase of the population, and despite that we have almost 10% of our population being refugees from various countries, we are still able to maintain a higher level of production, local production, that will definitely support the Egyptian budget and will definitely reduce our exposure to international hard currency for imports.
Yes, and speaking of the other top stories for today and the activities of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, Prime Minister Madbouli held a field tour on Saturday, visiting the Obur wholesale market and the carry-on outlet in Heliopolis in Cairo Governorate to assess the supply chain efficiency and the market stability. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Madbouli also said that the government is taking a proactive step to secure the essential commodities and ensure the supply chain efficiency as part of the broader efforts to maintain the market stability amid the ongoing regional and global challenges. And to be shedding more light on those important activities of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, I'm honored to be having with me over the phone Dr. Mohammed Kafafi, the chairman of the International Council for Green Economy. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, Doctor.
Hello, sir. How are you?
First of all, how do you see the activities of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli for today regarding the grains and the agricultural products in specific to be alleviating the burdens on the shoulders of the citizens?
Actually, the activity or the efforts towards this activity is very good. We appreciate the efforts, but also I want to exploit this opportunity to speak about the big problem in Egypt. It is lowest efficiency or lowest resource efficiency in all the fields. We have a huge potential of improvement of efficiency in different fields, in agriculture, in industry, in energy, in everywhere, not less than 40%. This is already my recommendation and my important comment on the activities already happen in Egypt now.
Yes, and regarding the steps taken by the Egyptian government and the statements of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli for today that we need to be having preemptive steps regarding the regional developments in the Middle East and the US-Israeli war against Iran, and things could be going on for maybe weeks, according to the statements of the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Okay. Already the activity of the government now towards reducing consumption and already improvement is or at least what is the name? It is named economic resilience. Now what we need to do, how to maintain or how to survive in these hard situations. Okay, this can be already done, as I told you. Also regarding efficiency improvement, conservation, and now the opportunity to moving towards renewable energy sources.
Yes,
okay?
Yes. Dr. Mohammed Kafafi, the chairman of the International Council for Green Economy, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Nile TV International and Money Means Business. Engineer Sherin Naggar, you've mentioned the importance of grains and the prices of grains and the agricultural products in general. We have seen today one of the activities of Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli is to be visiting the wholesale market of Al Obur, one of the biggest in Egypt. How do you see the insistence of the political leadership and the government to be checking on everything economically nowadays, especially within the updates in the region?
May I be frank?
Yes.
It is partly a waste of his effort. The reason for this is not just for us to control as Egyptians,
yes,
to control our production and control the pricing of the especially food commodities like vegetables, fruits, grain, and everything. I think the Egyptian government or the Egyptians generally are in a very big fault. The estimated waste factor of fresh produce between field and shelf relates to a figure which is a shocking 40%. Now, various international bodies have seen that when the handling of the fresh produce between the field, between harvest and actually going on the shelf, you lose something like 40%.
How can we decrease this percentage?
How can we decrease this percentage is by implementing strict rules for proper handling. I mean, you see, for example, tomatoes being shipped or being moved into the palm baskets. These damage the external the external side of the tomatoes. By the time you get there, the tomatoes are basically being hit by the sun for God how many hours, and the top is usually wasted, and half of the bottom is already damaged. So there this is where you get your damage. You need to have proper cargo care, which is extremely important. The person who has been very conscious about this, and I have to praise the gentleman, although he's not really a member of the government, is Dr. Khalid Hanafi. He was the Minister of Supply, and he immediately realized the crisis of grain, because grain, we had a shortage, a waste factor of 38% when he took over. He has managed to reduce that by building a series of silos. You saw probably as you drive around anywhere in the country now, yes, you find a lot of small silos. Those silos they've cost money, of course, but they have saved a hell of a lot of money more, because you have been able to reduce your waste factor by 25%. Now, if you imagine you're importing, let us say, 10 million tons, that's what, 2.5 million tons you basically feed to the birds and to the lizards and to the mice and to the rats. It's unacceptable. And he was the one who was very conscious about that and addressed it and actually solved a major problem there. And my recommendation is that for His Excellency the Minister of Agriculture to do the same, and to make sure that we implement means of handling the fresh produce, which is very vulnerable, in order to be able to reduce our waste. Reducing your waste means more cargo on the market, which means less prices, and that's what we're aiming for. You're paying money for this money eventually to be thrown in the bin or fed to the animals, because it gets wasted on transport. This is a principle, something we need desperately to overcome.
Yes, and speaking about the main topic for tonight, which is the Suez Canal operations and the statements of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, they are always focusing on the losses that we have had specifically for the operations of the Suez Canal, about $10 billion for the past years, regarding the attacks of the Houthis, for example, regarding the ongoing war in the Middle East between Iran and the United States and Israel. How did you see the important meeting that took place between President al-Sisi, Prime Minister Madouli, and the Chairman of the Suez Canal Authority to be discussing the future operations of the Suez Canal?
Well, the Suez Canal has definitely suffered a great deal because of, and 10 billion maybe even is an understatement. It's probably more than that. But the idea is the President himself is very much focused on the Suez Canal, because the Suez Canal is a major source of hard currency to the Egyptian budget. And you cannot just see it collapse or see it being attacked or being diminished, and you sit there and you don't do anything about it. In fact, the Chairman of the Suez Canal Authority has been very active since the Houthis attacks and since the drop in volumes. And he is actually developing the Suez Canal Authority into what it should be, or what it is actually qualified to do. Forget the Suez Canal Authority is not just a simple waterway where a pilot goes on one end and takes the ship across to the other end, and then you get paid for it. Okay, fine, you get good money for that for obvious reasons. But the Suez Canal Authority has got 5 shipyards. It's got industrial divisions. It's got harbor divisions. It's got dredging activities. And all these have been very much focused locally. And one of the activities that the Suez Canal Authority has started doing, and they have done a very, very good job of it, is building offshore supply boats and offshore and tugboats for harbors. And already 10 have been delivered, and more are on the way. And some of those tugs have already been sold to international bodies, which only tells you that we are doing the right thing. I mean, if a particular international shipping company goes out and buys tugs out of the Suez Canal, built by the Suez Canal Authority, it means that the Suez Canal Authority, they know how to build tugs, simple.
Yes.
And that is the kind of thing, that is the kind of industry that is being, that the Suez Canal Authority is focusing at the moment. Also, as a means of developing its international shipyard presence, its international presence as a shipyard operator. You have portside shipyard, you have portside mechanical works, you have Suez shipyard, you have 5 shipyards, Timsah, and you have Khedivial. 5 shipyards that, if only properly marketed and properly, I mean, efficiently, they are efficient. There's no question about that. But they have been upgraded tremendously over the past few years. I mean, this is not being, before that, they were neglected and they had a very poor reputation, which is very unfortunate. But now this has changed. But in order to get the market to accept the fact that these shipyards are actually up to standard and they are up to international levels and they are operating properly, that will take a bit of time, to take a bit of marketing. And the Suez Canal Authority is implementing all types of marketing activities there. One of which is the delegation from the International Chamber of Shipping, which is visiting the Suez Canal Authority on the 14th and 15th of April. And the International Chamber of Shipping, actually, they hold the Suez Canal Authority in general, and the chairman in particular, at a very high level of respect, because they see from the distance how he is managing his business and how his people are responding to the operation, are responding to the development. The International Chamber of Shipping, they are coming to renew the memorandum of agreement they have had together with the Suez Canal Authority. The Secretary General will be coming, the Japanese Ship Owners Association is the delegation that's going to be visiting, and their main concern is to support and express solidarity to the Suez Canal Authority and offer ideas and offer plans, if you may call it, to see how they can guide and support the Suez Canal Authority internationally in order to attract more business. But obviously, the headache and the nuisance of the Houthis is not really helping very much. But at least you have on your side the world's largest shipping organization. It's basically the umbrella of all shipping in the world is the International Chamber of Shipping. And they are coming here in person to make sure that they give the Suez Canal Authority whatever support they need.
This is not the first time that they have visited the delegation. It is not the first time for the delegation from the International Chamber of Shipping to be visiting the Suez Canal Authority. They were here, I think, 2 years or 3 years ago.
Yes, they were here. No, they are usually visiting the Suez Canal Authority quarterly. It is a known thing. There's a quarterly visit between the Suez Canal Authority and the International Chamber of Shipping.
Yes.
But they were actually here with a very large delegation some 3 years ago, when the former chairman of the International Chamber of Shipping was ending his term, and he came specifically to express his respect to the Suez Canal Authority and its chairman for the way they have been handling matters and been handling operation during his term at least. And he actually had an interview here in Nile TV.
Hopefully we can have another one in the upcoming weeks.
Send an invitation.
Yes. Regarding the ideas that this delegation could be talking about, could be suggesting for the operation of the Suez Canal Authority, can you give us an idea about them?
Well, the International Chamber of Shipping are mainly concerned about 2 matters: flow of energy through the Suez Canal, and of course, with the current situation, Hormuz and all that stuff, it's not really a very easy topic. However, the Saudi Arabian government has been very quick to act in connecting the Ras Tanura Yambo pipeline, and they are at least maybe the only country that is able to export its oil from the Gulf at this moment in time. That is one thing. The other important part is that they would probably also be discussing. They have not sent an agenda yet, so I'm just sort of assuming myself.
Yes.
That they will probably be discussing also the war risk and the premium on war risk insurance and so on, and how to attract container vessels to return to the Suez Canal Authority, to go to the Red Sea, to Bab el-Mandab, and to see how, of course, this is a commercial body, it's nothing political, nor is it anything military. But they're coming to discuss with the Suez Canal Authority how can the Suez Canal Authority support the ideas of increasing the flow of the container ships, especially. Don't forget that the supply chain into Europe is suffering dearly, and you cannot imagine the colossal amount of money people are paying for freights these days. So it is in the best interest of everybody that the Suez Canal operation returns back to normal, and the flows of cargoes and energy is retained. It will depress and it will suppress all these massive escalations of prices to a great deal. To give you an example,
yes.
Crude oil being moved from one destination to another, a ULCC would cost you, a 300,000 tonner would cost maybe $150,000 a day to charter before the war. After the war, we are hearing figures of $500,000, $600,000, even $700,000 per day for charter of a ship like that. So you can imagine the hike of energy coming, of the hike of prices on energy alone. And of course, energy will reflect on containerization because these people burn fuel, and naturally the containers will be going much higher. Container lines are also implementing the bunker adjustment factor, which is an increment on the freight with immediate effect even if you have cargo on the water. So they will take more money from you, and you will not get your cargo before you pay me my bunker adjustment factor. You see, all these things are creating a lot of turmoil, and this is one of the things that the International Chamber of Shipping will be addressing with the Suez Canal Authority, just brainstorming and seeing how they can develop an understanding together in order to be able to reduce the effect of these things until we know what's going to happen with this current conflict.
Yes, and regarding what is going to happen, Engineer Sherin and Naggar, please allow me to be going to the report of Money Means Business for tonight, focusing on the statements of Finance Minister Ahmed Kojak with some good news, as Egypt is targeting a growth rate of 5.4% and the primary surplus target of 1.2 trillion Egyptian pounds in the 2026-2027 fiscal budget. We'll be having more details in the upcoming reports, so stay tuned.
Finance Minister Ahmed Kojak said that Egypt targets GDP growth of 5.4%, inflation stabilization, and a primary surplus of 1.2 trillion Egyptian pounds during the 2026-2027 fiscal year. Kojak made his remarks during a meeting with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to review the priorities and parameters of fiscal policy for the 2026-2027 budget. Planning Minister Ahmad Rustom said during the weekly cabinet meeting last month that the country is expected to record an annual growth rate of 5.2% by the end of the fiscal year 2025-2026, which concludes on the 30th of June of 2026. The New Year's target aligns with IMF projections according to a World Economic Outlook report update released in February. The Finance Minister said the government seeks to allocate 90 billion Egyptian pounds to programs supporting economic activity and extend financial support to the energy sector, according to a statement from the Egyptian presidency. Kojak added that debt service indicators are expected to improve significantly as the debt to GDP ratio continues to decline. The minister said the budget also provides for substantial increases in health and education spending, teacher salaries, and a real rise in public sector wages tied to performance and exceeding inflation. The meeting also addressed targeted growth rates, the primary surplus, primary expenditures and revenues, as well as the government's efforts to achieve fiscal balance, particularly in light of rising regional pressures and their economic fallout. Kocek also noted that the government is pressing ahead with its reform agenda to secure financial and economic stability and stimulate private sector growth. Additionally, he reaffirmed the government's commitment to sustaining production, manufacturing, and exports through balanced fiscal policies, and noted the continuation of tax, customs, and real estate facilitation measures to ease burdens on citizens and investors. For his part, President el-Sisi stressed the need to press on with comprehensive institutional reform aimed at ensuring fiscal discipline and sound governance through rationalized public spending, stronger revenues, and reduced government debt. He also called on the government to step up efforts to attract local and foreign investment and to maintain direct engagement with investment communities worldwide to communicate Egypt's economic measures and mitigate the impact of regional developments.
Welcome back. You're still watching Money Means Business. Engineer Sherin and Naggar, as we did see the statements of the Minister of Finance, Ahmed Kocek, that Egypt is aiming at a growth rate of 5.4% and a primary surplus of 1.2 trillion Egyptian pounds in the upcoming fiscal year. How do you see those targets? Are they achievable within all those developments in the Middle East?
Well, I would imagine so. I'm not an economist myself, so
Yes.
I cannot really be a judge there. But one thing I can tell you for sure, that if Egypt has not done what it has done over since 2020, since the COVID crisis, we would be a shattered economy by now. And I think it is surprising to everybody that despite of all the difficulties and all the blows we have been receiving in one year after the other, I mean, I'm not going to name them all because we all know that, but yes. Every year when we say, okay, fine, now the Egyptian economy is going to stand up and start breathing fresh air, then suddenly something hits it. You know, and it is very unfortunate that Egypt is very fortunate with its place, yes, with its geographical location. But it seems that also sometimes this geographical location can be a curse, because everything that happens in the world has an effect on Egypt somewhere, and one is starting to doubt if two taxi drivers bump into each other in Taiwan, it might have an effect on the Egyptian government. You know, this is the kind of thing, everything going worldwide. Because of globalization, because of this, Egypt definitely is in the center of the world, so is definitely affected. And what they have been, the government has been doing, and what they have overcome a lot of crises, a lot of very serious blows, which are not self-inflicted, unfortunately. They are simply being brought upon us. And how the government handled them is definitely deserves a lot of respect. Although people are suffering, say the prices are going high, we are not having enough money and all that, yes, that is fine. But it is like somebody going through surgery where you have to cut his stomach open to take the tumor out and then sew it up again, and that hurts. And that's exactly what is happening with us.
Yes, and regarding the losses and speaking specifically about the Suez Canal and the operations for the future, do you think that the ongoing war will be compounding the losses? You've mentioned that $10 billion is an understatement somehow. Do you think that the losses will be even compounded for the future, for the upcoming fiscal year, or things will be reversing the course, and more specifically after winding down the course of the war and going into negotiations between the USA and Iran?
Well, before the wars broke out, we had two alliances who officially announced their return to the Suez Canal for Suez Canal operations. And in containerization, when you have one alliance deciding to go through the shorter route, it becomes a very competitive alliance to its customers. And then the others will definitely follow suit for one simple reason, is that they will lose cargo if they don't. So what I'm trying to say is that if we can neutralize the Houthi threat and stop that from affecting us the way they are affecting us, then I think we can easily attract the Suez Canal traffic back into Bab el-Mandab. That is one thing. Of course, that will also be very much dependent on the Joint War Committee, which is the committee that decides how much war risk insurance or which part is a war risk area and so on. And that is where really the insurance on the Hala machinery or on the protection and indemnity clubs, this is what really counts, because these figures are becoming phenomenal.
Yes, Engineer Sherin Naggar, the International Maritime Consultant, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Money Means Business.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the program for this week. Thank you for watching and goodbye.